Hello, can you hear me? Nope. He says up. Is that up or good?
That's good.
Up, he said. Up. All right. What? You can't do it without me talking? Come on. I'm right behind you. God is good.
All the time.
All the time.
God is good.
Well, all week long, I was telling Doug earlier, all week long, I just knew what God wanted me to preach about. And I've got in the Bible, and I've studied, and I've worked on it, and it felt like I was chewing razor wire, but I got on it and started. And last night, sitting and praying, said, Lord, why is this not coming so easy? He said, okay, wait. Are you done preparing a sermon? Now let me help you. You know, it's funny, when you lead God, you don't get anywhere. Let me show you what I mean. Let me borrow somebody. Miss Sue Hodges. May I borrow you a moment? Can you come in for a minute? No, I'm not going to pop you with it. Come on up. I'm sorry. All right. Turn around, please. Now, Sue has been walking a day or two, right? Okay. All right. Can you see anything? No? Okay, go and walk your husband. Okay. All right, well, how about if I did this? Take about 3 steps forward. Tentatively, huh? Okay, one more step. Okay, about 6 inches ahead of you, there's a step. You can step down, please. Feel it? All right. And then again, about 3 inches. There you go. And then a real small step, another 3. There you go. Now, she made it all the way down. Why did she not do it? Thank you, sweetie. Why did she not do it unassisted? She knew how to walk, but being blindfolded, she was disoriented. She couldn't see where her feet needed to be. And I picked on Sue because I knew that she is a cautious lady and she wasn't about to burrow off of this thing without being able to see. I went several ways, even on the way up here, you know, praying about it. And God usually changes it 3 or 4 times just to make sure I know He's in charge. But I want you to know that we today, and that blindfold will come in focus here in just a minute. We today, as adults, as Christians, as strong Christians, as adult Christians, as mature Christians, today at Narrow Trail Cowboy Church, have been failing. And I take complete blame because as the spiritual leader of the church, I should have been on the top of it. I can remember growing up in church, and everywhere we went, we always had this like huge youth group. When we showed up, there was 3 or 4 kids. And of course, it grew exponentially when we moved in because Mom and Dad had a slew of kids. And all of a sudden, it grew and grew and grew. Why? One thing was we'd do things that were gaining the kids' interests. I talk a lot about trying to get an arena up. And at first, people were saying, why do we need one? It's important. Harry talks about it up here. I think Doug's even talked about it up here. It's important. Why? Because we've got to do something that's more interesting than what's happening out in the world. Now, Christ Himself, twice, and this was in Matthew 18 and Matthew 19. In Matthew 18, that's Amos, Jay, not Matthew. Okay, Matthew 18, the disciples came to Him and said, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? I think they were fishing to see who was going to be the top dog. What did Christ do? He grabbed a child. He grabbed a child and brought him up and said, unless you become like this child, you have no part. Because, the one who's the least will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And in one chapter over, people were bringing children. I guess after Christ said this, people were excited about this and brought their children. Let the Messiah bless these kids. And the disciples were saying, hey, look, this is a busy guy. Why don't y'all leave him alone a little bit? And the Bible says Christ became indignant. Not that he was a little upset. He became indignant. And what did he say? Let the kids come to me. And don't hold them back. Because the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. The kingdom of heaven belongs to these kids. They're the ones that are going to grow up and lead their kids, who are going to lead their kids, and so on, down through the ages. Now, it's become, I guess, an epidemic, and it's really, I can see why. Parents now are both working, and in order to stay afloat nowadays, both usually have to work a couple of jobs or work long hours, and kids are left to raise themselves. Or Xbox raises them, or entertainers, And what happens is, they're blindfolded and walking off this stage. We hand them the reins and say, go, drive. But they don't know what they're doing. It is our responsibility, ours, as parents, as leaders, as Christians, maturing Christians, to say, look, there's a way to go. And the way to go is not like a lot of the entertainers, because in the entertainment industry, it is in vogue, it is a fad to say, well, I don't believe in God. I am cool. I look at, and the only one that comes to mind right now is Brad Pitt, who grown up in a Christian home. All of a sudden, he gets famous and he don't need God. Well, what he's showing is all these kids who wants to be cool like Brad Pitt because he's this big superstar. You don't need God. But as parents, we need to say, look at that idiot. He's walking around blind as a bat, thinking that sonar's saving him. It's our responsibility. And it's not that we asked for it. It's not that we got it by, we inherited it. I got it by inheritance. We got it through a calling. Each Christian who is called to serve the Lord, I love him. Lee said, I didn't serve in the army. That was the cooks in the mess hall. Let me tell you something. I served. I'm sorry, but service is not just giving food to people. Service is ensuring that they, come on, parents. I want a mother, right now, to tell me what they do to serve their children. Is it feed? Laundry? What else is it? Making sure they get their backside up and get to school? What? Huh? Yeah, make sure they study at night. But make sure they're fed, but that ain't the biggest thing. The biggest thing is, there you go, spiritual growth. Spiritual growth. That's the biggest thing. Now, you serve it to them. Whether they take it or not is up to them. A lot of parents have thankless jobs. And I want you to think about this. The Vietnam veterans that came back had a thankless job, just as Fritz was talking about. The veterans today, yes, we say how much we thank you and appreciate you, and we're glad you're standing on a wall so I don't have to. I can go to bed at night and sleep because you say, I got this, don't worry about it. How many soldiers today in the United States Army, how many Marines, how many sailors, how many airmen, how many of them today joined the service of our country prepared to go into battle? Not one stinking one of them. Not one. I joined when I was a kid, and when I got to tell you this one. I went into Lowe's the other day. Needed to get my military discount. Pull my little blue ID card out. She said, "Were you in Vietnam?" Yes, the Tet Offensive of '68. I felt that the service to my country was far more important than anything I did at 3 years old, so I went ahead and got that over with. She said, "What?" I said, "Sweetheart, I ain't that old, am I?" But the soldiers that came in, when I joined as a young man, fresh out of high school, green as a gourd, I knew absolutely nothing about the Army except that I got 3 meals, a bed, I got to blow stuff up and shoot guns. That was the extent of my knowledge. Now, when I got there, I learned a vastly different approach that they had. They led me by the hand. They led me by the short hairs through basic training, and they said, "Forget everything you know about life because we're going to teach you something different." And they broke us down to where we could depend on nothing but what the drill sergeant said. And we went through our basic training. After completing that, we thought, man, we're done. Now we're soldiers. We went from there to individual advanced training. And when we got there, they kind of led us by the hand, I guess you could say. And instead of spoon feeding us baby feed, they gave us a fork and let us try a little bit on our own. And when that was over, we said, "Oh, thank you, now I'm a soldier." Well, no, not really. Because when you got to your unit, there was a leader over you who's a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, that screamed, hollered, kicked, cussed, bit anything he could do to keep you on that straight and narrow. And they trained. I hated classes. I mean, I wanted to go do cool stuff, like go to the range, shoot guns, go to the bomb range, blow stuff up. And no, we did NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical training. We did training on the alarms and the stuff. We did training on how to drive a vehicle that we've never tried before, or just training on a bunch of little things. And I was like, really? Why is this important? And then they drop us over into Iraq. And the things that we've been trained to do, the things that we made a habit out of, because if you don't get it the first time, you go over it and over it and over it and over it. So we learned to get proficient at it, so we quit this mess and go do something cool. Suddenly, the importance of being able to get your protective mask on in 9 seconds was there staring us in the face. And when somebody said, "Gas," you had 9 seconds to get your mask on, or you were extremely debilitated, and in some cases, debilitated to the point you ain't breathing anymore. So, it's very important. And it's up to the non-commissioned officers and the officers over them to make sure we were trained to that level of expertise. Now, those guys joined. I joined. There's probably several here who didn't. went into combat with the promise that they're going to go into combat, maybe come back. But you have no choice in going. That's a calling. Being a soldier, believe it or not, when you join, it doesn't matter. That's a calling. You have this desire inside, this feeling that you have to make a difference. You have to stand. You have to make that stand and say, you go no further. This is it. Amos. I love Amos. Book of Amos. Chapter 7, verse 10. Amos chapter 7, verse 10. Now Amos had been he was from Judah, and he went to Israel. He's been in there for a while. He's been prophesying God's judgment. Okay? Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent a message to Jeroboam, king of Israel. Said, Amos is raising conspiracy against you in the very heart of Israel. The land cannot bear all of his words. For this is what Amos is saying. Jeroboam will die by the sword, and Israel will surely go into exile away from the native land. Then Amaziah said to Amos, get out, you seer. Go back to the land of Judah. Earn your bread there and do your prophesying there. Don't prophesy anymore at Bethel, because this is the king's sanctuary and the temple of the kingdom. Amos answered, I was neither a prophet nor a prophet's son, but I was a shepherd, and I also took care of sycamore fig trees. But the Lord took me from leading the flock and said to me, go and prophesy to my people in Israel. Now then, hear the word of the Lord. He said, I didn't ask for this job. I was happy being a shepherd. I was happy with what I was doing. I'm comfortable right here. And God said, no. You got a job. Why didn't he just say, Lord, can you ask somebody else? First of all, you don't do that to God. But the important thing is, because God said, I give you a calling and you cannot get away from it. It's your responsibility as a follower of me, of God, that you have to go into this country and tell them what I'm about to do to them. In fact, I'm about to stomp on their head. Paraphrasing. He didn't actually say that. But listen, we as leaders today have to tell our children, Jesus is the way, truth, and the life. If you don't go through him, you come up short. There was a song, I remember hearing it one time at church, and the song said, most people miss heaven by 18 inches. That's the distance from their head to their heart. You remember the song, right? 18 inches. Now, being in the artillery and being in the army shooting rifles, I understand that a fraction of an inch off here, 30 miles down the road where that round hits, is a considerable amount. So they're just going to stand there and laugh at you while you're dropping the bullets over there. But 18 inches. I would hate to know that my child missed heaven by 18 inches, because I was too busy. I worked long hours, and I was too busy to say, look, stop watching that junk or playing those games and listen to me. Listen to me. Focus. You need to start listening to God. You need to start following God. Let me read you a story in the Bible. Let me tell you a story from the Bible. Just make sure you're telling it accurate. That's our responsibilities. Now, our children, and this is my political part of it, putting a plug in. Our children are about to be inundated by the world. They're leaving school, which they're inundated by the world there too, but they're watched more closely. They're leaving school, and they have nothing more to do but video games that's stealing stuff, killing stuff, blowing stuff up. They have nothing else to do but watch these videos that, scan real quick, watch these videos that does nothing, or movies that does nothing but promote promiscuity.
Amen.
I heard a song the other day that burnt my backside. And it was a singer said, well, if you want love, I got just enough. No, you're not talking about love, you're talking about lust. Love is something that happens without your knowledge. You don't know it's happening, but then it happens and it does not end. Well, we fell out of love. No, we fell out of lust. The honeymoon ended, and so did your lust. God has the perfect love. I know we don't. I don't have a perfect love. God does. And if we watch Him, we'll see what that's like. So we're letting the kids watch this junk. We come home tired and say, go ahead, I don't have time to mess with you. We're failing our kids. But we have 1 week, actually 4 days, starting on the 21st, 3rd, 23rd. We have 4 days. We, as Christians, as maturing Christians, have a chance to show kids every evening, 2 hours, have a chance to show kids Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. All right? Now, yeah, we're talking about kids from 3 to 12. But we have teenagers. Uh-oh, what's happening with them? Well, they get to come help. They get to help teach. I learned this in the Army. The best way to learn a subject is to teach it. Because if you ain't learning it, you can't teach it. So, PJ is doing the homeschooling thing. And she says, I've learned more of the basic math and English skills by teaching Kirsten than I have going through college. Because I have to learn it before I can tell her the right way. If we're young Christians, if we're maturing, this is a perfect opportunity. Amen. The question is, are we too busy? Are we too busy? And I'm guilty of that myself. I miss a lot of things. We work a ranch, and at this time, right now, is peak haying season. And I'm usually cutting hay in the morning, right after feeding, and I stop it when it gets too dark to see, or baling, or hauling. But why am I just stressed about this? It's still going to be there in 4 days. We need to stop and check out what's important. Isaiah, 9th chapter of Isaiah, God told him, look at my people. Look at them. Who's going to go and be my advocate? Who's going to go and tell them what Isaiah say? Here, my Lord, send me. I'm right here. I'll do it. He took the responsibility. I can show you several examples in the Bible. I'm not going to go into all of them right now. Well, Philip. And there's another one where the blind folks are. God told Philip, you go on the road, on this certain highway. I'm going to lie to you if I tell you. Anyway, he said you go on a certain highway. And that is in the Acts of the Apostles. 8:26. Philip was told to go. He went and he saw a eunuch. Pretty high up on the food chain eunuch, sitting on his chariot reading the book about Isaiah. An angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Go south to the desert road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza." So he started out, and on his way he met an Ethiopian eunuch, an important official in charge of all the treasury of Candace, queen of Ethiopians. This man had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and on his way home was sitting in his chariot reading the book of Isaiah the prophet. The Spirit told Philip, "Go to that chariot and stay near it." When Philip ran up to the chariot, he heard the man reading. "Do you understand what you're reading?" Philip asked. "How can I," he said, "until someone explains it to me?" So he invited Philip up in to sit with him. "Yeah, I can read the Bible. But how can I explain it how can I understand it unless somebody explains it?" Well, listen to God. You have to be able to hear His voice. Filter out all the gunk that's coming in nowadays and hear His voice. How do we do that? The maturing Christians take the responsibility and say, "Well, come here, let me show you. This is what He was saying." I think he was reading about he was reading the scripture. He was led like a sheep to the slaughter, like a lamb before the shearer is silent, so he did not open his mouth. He was talking about Christ. He didn't understand what he meant. The Ethiopian said, "What is this thing? I don't understand it." Let me show you. It's our responsibility as Christians. I don't understand what salvation is. That's one of those religious words. Salvation. I don't understand what salvation is. Well, let me show you. I was talking to someone and they said, "Why are you talking to me like I'm free?" Well, because most of the people I talk to don't understand what salvation is. They were offended. I don't care. But they were offended because I was explaining basically what salvation is. Starting a relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ. Why? Why do we need to do this? Because if you don't, you're going to miss the boat. All the folks in Noah's time missed the boat, except for Noah and his family. And they missed it by a hair's breadth, because when that door closed, it was too late. Now, what happened to all them? Guess what? I saw a window sticker on the way up here on a truck, big manly truck. Had a pistol, and it said, "There's nothing in this truck worth losing your life over." Yeah, I like that. Then I got to thinking, wait a minute. In this world today, what in this world is worth losing your soul? What is it in this world worth risking our children's soul? We as Christians need to take responsibility. We have a 14-year-old girl who's not here today, unfortunately, was unable to make it, but she took responsibility and said, "I'll go, I'll take care of the kids." Now, we have to send an adult back there with her every Sunday. Every Sunday, from the reports I get, she has done a wonderful job. Because we'd rather sit out here and listen to the sermon. Why? I don't know. Because it happened, they're putting it on YouTube.